what went into the idea behind the starting 11 and the formation, what went wrong with it, and what went into the changes and what worked in the second half? Thank you.
There were a couple things wrong with it. I think that at first, what I'd say, a couple things. So the first thing is our back line wasn't pushing up quick enough. That was an issue. And then they made the field much bigger than we needed it to be. Gave them some time in midfield. Second thing I'd say is that at times our wing backs weren't releasing quickly enough, and our side center backs weren't sliding over quickly enough, and then the player wide had time on the ball, and it became dangerous. Third thing I would say is that because of the first ball was getting the first ball would play long by them, we'd win the first ball, and it went to their two defensive midfielders sitting in front of the back line. We didn't have anyone to win those second balls. So towards the end of the half, we started moving Josh and Christian in for the second balls, and that helped a little bit. And then the fourth thing was the pressure. In terms of we wanted to be mid-block, low pressure, and at times Ricardo was going off on his own trying to press, and we weren't. That wasn't the plan to really press them. So the good things about it, though, what I thought was we looked very stable defending crosses. Besides the goal, I think up until the goal, I looked over the bench. I said we're in really good shape on anything they put in the penalty box right now. It looked really good. As we started to move our attacking midfielders central and deeper, they started getting the ball more, which was a good thing as well. There was space for our wing backs to move high and exploit the weak side of the field, and we did that sometimes. And we were able to get some crosses in the box that ended up being dangerous. But overall, what we saw was, after going behind in the game, we kind of lost momentum in that system, and we wanted to change it up. And we wanted to go back to a 4-3-3, be more aggressive, coming out, pressing high. And that had a good effect on the game. It also gave us some good numbers in the midfield. And it also helped that they changed their formation. And it made it very easy to press when they were playing with three in the back. They had wing backs that were trying to step to our fullbacks, so we went really low with our fullbacks, and that helped give us some space. And then we came into the game also with duels and competing. And when I look at the stats in the first half, our dual percentage was really low, and that was one of the comments at halftime is, guys, if we want to get ourselves back into this game, we need to start competing.
Next, we'll go to Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Greg, what was your message to the team at halftime? How did you explain to them the change in formation, and what did you ask of them at halftime? And then also, how is Christian?
So I explained we're going back to our normal 4-3-3, but there's going to be some personnel changes. We talked about what we needed from our top line group and what we needed from our back line. We need to push up much quicker, condense the field, give our midfielders smaller space to be able to win balls. We wanted to be more aggressive, high pressing them, and we thought that would lead to some turnovers. And the subs did a great job all night. In terms of, and then the second thing that I already said was we need to compete more. And that was something I was disappointed with. I felt like we lost when they scored. Instead of seeing that reaction that we're used to, I think their heads went down a little bit, and we needed to embrace what type of game it was going to be. Christian has a slight ankle injury. We're going to get more info on it when he goes back to London. Well, we're not sure of the severity of it now.
Next will be Grant Wall.
Hey, Greg, congratulations on the win.
Thanks, Grant.
In terms of the use of Tyler Adams and starting him at right back as opposed to centrally, what goes into your thought process when you're thinking about that decision to start the game?
He basically played there all year last year for Red Bull, right, as a wingback. So he's very familiar with that position. We thought switching high wingback, switching field, they defend really narrow. Honduras does with their back line. So we felt switching field to a weak side wingback would have a good benefit, and he's used to doing that. The other part of it, the equation is, we're really light on right backs. We didn't feel like DeAndre could go 90 minutes, and we didn't want to have a planned sub already. So we went with a guy that's familiar with that position. What it meant was, James Sands was going to be in the midfield. And, I thought he had a really interesting game, some ups and downs, but a really good experience for him. You can see that he's a competitor.
Next, we'll go to Doug McIntyre from Fox.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Doug.
Just curious how important this win is tonight, just from a morale point of view, after a lot of the negativity over the last week. And I'm also curious where Ricardo Pepi stands after his performance tonight. Thanks, Greg.
So, regarding the negativity, we had a meeting, and we talked about just tuning it out, focusing on what we're doing. It's completely understandable that fans aren't excited about 2 points from 2 games, but it wouldn't have doomed the qualifying. We took points off a team away from home, which is important. We noticed that a lot of teams were dropping points at home, which didn't make it as severe that we did in that game. And it was just about getting ready for the next game, and that was the important thing. So the message, and I think the mindset of the guys over these last 2 games completely changed. I think they were more relaxed and more focused, and the mood around the camp was really good. So despite all this crap that happened in these last couple of days, the guys' spirits were extremely high. The second part of the question was Ricardo Pepi, and I thought he did a great job. Worked tirelessly, competed against physical center backs, scored a really good goal, and overall I think had a strong performance. For an 18-year-old, it's really impressive what he did.
Next, we'll go to Henry Bushnell from Yahoo.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Greg. To follow up a bit on Paul's question from earlier, were the changes that you made from the start today changes that you've always planned to make from the beginning of this window, or were they changes that you made based on how the first 2 games went?
We wanted to play a back 5. Obviously, it was hard to plan, for all the injuries that we got in this first week. So we didn't plan to play Tyler Adams right wing back in the game, but we wanted to make sure that anyone that played was going to give us the output that we needed. And we didn't feel like DeAndre could do it for 90 minutes, and we felt like he could have a bigger impact coming off the bench. The same thing was with Anthony Robinson. I talked to him, and it wasn't an easy conversation, but I explained to him that he's going to come in and make an impact off the bench, and we wanted George to start the game. I thought he had an outstanding game against Canada, but I talked to him about his role in this game and how we were going to bring him in to make an impact, and he did. So overall, there was a plan to be, to kind of quell some of their counterattacking with 3 in the back, and with 3 and 2, push our wing backs high, attacking mids inside, and but the personnel had to change based on availability.
Next will be Daniel Nora from Univision.
Thank you, Michael. Greg, besides the Nations League and the Gold Cup, they were huge. But do you consider this as the most important win for you since you are the national team coach so far, considering the whole week?
I think it's a good win for the group. We did a lot of talking before the camp, before the first game, about it being a 9-point week, and that was really important. And I think that's great to have high expectations. Everyone wants to win games, right? But the other side of it is, it's just talk, right? And then you have to go out and do it. And it's very difficult to do. And I think that we needed to give these guys that experience. They needed to see what these games are like, because they're completely different games. Both the El Salvador and the Honduras game they're wars. You have teams and countries that are desperate to get wins, to get in the World Cup, and it's a different animal than we were used to. So I think this whole window was great for this group. We really needed that in terms of the eye-opening of what this experience actually is. So to cap it off with a win was important for the standings. We're in second place now, and and also to come back in the way we did. You know, the U.S. doesn't come back after giving up a goal too often, and the guys showed their resiliency like we've shown many times before. So overall, you know, happy with the effort of the team.
Just one point of information. It is the third time that the U.S. has come back when conceding the first goal on the road in World Cup qualifying. The record stands at 3-26-5. Next will be Sam Stejskal.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Greg. Congrats on the win.
Thanks, Sam.
Just following up on Daniel's question there, you mentioned that these games can be worse. You know, this group was inexperienced entering into this window. At halftime, you know, I don't know what it felt like for you, but what did it feel like for you? Was there any sense that you guys were kind of on the brink here? And what did you think of the response and how emphatic it was in the second half?
Sorry to laugh, but listen, I think even if we would have lost the game, we wouldn't have been out of qualifying. You know, there would still be 11 games to play. You know, and it's the mentality that we're just jumping all over reactions, and I think part of it was our fault for setting it up, what we wanted to do, being that open about it. But that is the expectations of the group, and at halftime, the message was, guys, we're going to get back in this game. We made some changes. We made some formation change. We want to be more aggressive, high pressing. We know space is going to open up, and we need to compete because there's urgency on every single duel that they go in, and we need to match or exceed that. And in the second half, we did. When you look at the duel numbers in the second half, they rocketed up to over 60%.
Next will be Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Michael, Greg, congratulations.
Thanks, Jonathan.
You mentioned along the way in sort of the last 2 interviews about, we've all talked about it, I think, the last few days, wanting these young players who have never experienced anything like this before, especially on the road, to have the experience and see how they would do. Was there a point over the course of the week, whether it's tonight or at some other point, where you could sort of see the light bulb going off and they're getting it now, how different it is from even playing in big games in Europe? And also, if you could comment on Brendan Aronson and his performances over the course of the games and his willingness to be a spark plug and just go at guys.
I think he had a great window. I thought he was excellent in all the games, and I think he was excellent in the Canada game and excellent again tonight. But overall, I think it's not. If we want to write stories, I think we should write stories about this group and just how young this group is and trying to do what we're trying to do. Traditionally, we're going into qualifying with a team that's 3 to 4 years older than the average age is 3 to 4 years older. I mean, this is an extremely young group, has no experience going through this before, and they're grinding. And it's not always going to be pretty, and it's not always going to go our way. There's going to be more ups and downs throughout the course of qualifying. But the key is just keep going and keep focused on improving and getting better. And if we can do that, we'll be fine.
2 follow-up points of information. With 4 new players tonight, they brought the total to 16 in the 3 World Cup qualifiers, making their first appearance in a World Cup qualifier in these first 3 matches. So 16 total in this window. Also tonight, we started the youngest lineup ever for the U.S. national team in World Cup qualifying and the second youngest ever in official competition. We'll go to Paul Kennedy from Soccer America.
Thank you, and congratulations, Greg. Can you speak a little bit about how tricky the September window is, because you have so many players coming in from Europe where they were just starting their season, some were having transfer questions about hanging over them. And I say that because when you win the game at the end in the second half, most of the front 6 were MLS players who were in mid-season fitness.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for bringing that up, because that's a great point. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare trying to piece together a lineup, and you make concessions because guys are at new clubs or they're not exactly fit, or some guys got penalized because of the Gold Cup, and then they're not back in the starting 11 for the start of the season. I mean, it was really challenging, and then you have injuries as well. So piecing all that together was challenging. It really was, and But having said that, we talked about when the group got into camp, we talked about it's going to need to be a collective effort. There's not going to be 11 guys playing all 3 games, and I'm not sure how many different starters we use, but it truly was a collective effort, and and that's what we need in these games. That's what we need in each of these windows. When you think about what we had to go through, so El Salvador is the first game of qualifying that they have in general and at home. They didn't have any travel. They're in El Salvador training, and they were extremely motivated, great crowd. Then we come home to Canada that also had very little travel based on, what they did their first game. And then we come back to Honduras that it was their first home game as well in the cycle. So it was a challenging cycle for us. And I think, it's 5 points. Although we're disappointed with a point here or there, I think we'll live with it for sure.
Just one minor correction on the statistic. The lineup tied for the youngest ever in official competition with the lineup we played on July 15th of this year against Martinique in the Gold Cup. We'll take a couple more questions for Gregg, and we'll continue with Nicholas Mendela from NBC Sports.
Yeah, thanks, Gregg. Wanted to ask you about the balance of deciding when to kind of, for lack of a better term, these guys experience in these big spots versus obviously, you've mentioned the import of them having that experience. That seems like a massive challenge and a headache. And the second part is if you could talk about the save that Matt Turner made that maybe gets lost in the shuffle because the game's 1-1 at that point, and it's a pretty exceptional save.
Yeah, Matt was great this window. I thought he had an outstanding 3 games. He's one of those guys that looked like he already played 10 World Cup qualifiers. Really poised. I thought, did a great job, including that save and a couple other times when he came out and, the ball holds up on the thick grass, and I thought he was outstanding. Regarding the experience, I think it just shows that we believe in this group. And we have to go for it. We have to give them that experience. We have to have faith in them. We have to have trust in them. And that was a big reason why we started a guy like George Bello, because I told him, I said, listen, failure is not an option here. You're going to learn. Either way, you're going to learn, and that's how you look at it. And so, him, James Sands, Ricardo, Brendan, Josh Sargent, all those guys, Mark and Miles, it's a young group, and they need this experience. They need to feel what these games are like if we want to grow.
We'll go to Charles Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned it, but I wonder if you could delve a little more into your substitutes and how they changed the game for you in a positive way.
So I think starting with Anthony, we went to a 4-3-3 in the second half, and he was aggressive going forward. We know his speed, we know how he can arrive, we know how he can put in a cross, and we just needed a little bit of a pop. I thought George started the game really well, and then faded a little bit as we went into that half. So we got more physicality, we got more size on the field, and he made a big difference. Scored a goal. And, we were looking for him to arrive in the box, so he did that. Sebastian gave us poise. He knows the way we play. He knows the defensive structure, and I thought did a good job there. And then Brendan Aronson, is a spark plug. I think his energy is contagious. I think he sparks the group, and it made a big impact. I think it gave the guys confidence in the fact that we had more energy, and also the back line pushing up gave the group confidence that we're going to be more aggressive. So I thought that was great. And then when you bring in a guy like Christian Roldan, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. He's going to compete like no other. And we're targeting goal kicks to him because that's how well he competes. So I thought he did a good job. And then finally, DeAndre. DeAndre is a guy that We needed a boost of power at that time. We're going to get a little bit more mobility in central midfield, and needed the boost on the right-hand side. And I thought he did a fantastic job, really gave the group some energy.
Last question for Greg comes from Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News.
Yeah, Greg, the last goal that made it 4-1 has you in a position that you do in the standings. I know there's a long way to go, but I got to guess that it feels better to look at yourself above that line than below it. So I'm wondering if at that point in the game, were you guys telling them to still push from the bench, or was that just Tyler seizing the moment, pushing forward and creating what happened?
Well, I think things open up. Things open up, and Tyler's a guy that showed in this game that he can penetrate with the ball, and they were desperate. They were putting numbers forward, and we took advantage of that counterattack. Ideally, we're focused on slowing the game down, but if space is open when you're doing that, you should take advantage of them, and that's what we did. So I thought that was a really good counterattack.
Thank you, Greg. We will